We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
Eagles! Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup. For the lead. Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Well, good morning. Talking all things Phils this morning. Eric, it's been an interesting lull in the summer. We're figuring out this team is doing a really nice job at navigating this this injury-riddled stretch, but you're seeing some other guys step up, and they're 5-3 since their core of guys have gone out. But really cool to see how they're able to be on the upswing of this, considering the news comes out that you're going to get Schwarber back probably when they come back on Tuesday. You're going to get Harper back potentially maybe before the All-Star break. Talk to me about where this team is, because all things kind of look on the up and up. They're, as we said, not 9 games up, 10.
It's
10 games up?
nine now after losing yesterday. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they're actually, I guess, given what it could have been once Harper and Schwarber both went down, if no one really stepped up, we could be talking about a very different situation. But the fact they're playing over 500 baseball during that stretch is pretty impressive. We're also starting to see, and I don't want to necessarily call it regression, but we're gonna start seeing a lot of these pitchers, I think, pitching a little back toward their means, right? Like Sanchez had a rough outing, Suarez had a rough outing. It's not like cause for concern, I don't think, because number one, like you look at their track records, Suarez has been a good pitcher, but he's never been a sub. He's probably not going to be a sub-2 ERA guy for a full season. Sanchez, same thing. So, I mean, even if they do regress back and get up near, 3 ERAs, like they're going to have a couple bad outings here and there. You're kind of getting to that middle of the season. I think Thompson talked about it last night after the game, just talking about Ranger maybe having a little fatigue there, but they're looking like all the numbers and stats and everything they look at was nothing really alarming. So, we get the All-Star break coming up, give these guys a little bit of time off here, come back afterwards, and be ready to go for the end of July and into August, September.
Yeah, listen, the way the production that they've gotten, like, let's talk about Trey Turner real quick, because his bat's been running into everything over the course of the last couple of games. He's got the 2 home run game to start the series in Atlanta. He's got the other game, the game a couple of days ago, also with his bat is just really, really showing up at a time where you need it, where essentially you've got 3 of your 4, I shouldn't say 4, 3 of your 5 best hitters that are out of your lineup right now. Yeah,
he's been the guy who's kind of been carrying everything. Castellanos has actually had a sneaky good line over his last 7 games. And it's reflecting the slugging percentage too. So he's been doing what he needs to do, I think, to kind of keep things going. But yeah, Turner's been insane. And it really, I saw something yesterday about his carryover basically now in 162 games played for the Phillies. And his numbers have been really, really, really good. Or maybe it's been 162 games since the ovation. Something, I guess that could be it. I forget what it was, but it was something like almost a full season now. Where his numbers have been really, really good since then, and just what he's been able to put up for the Phillies at this point. And you needed a guy like him to step up, right? When you have 3 of basically your top 5 like highest paid guys in your lineup out, you need those other guys to step up. And Turner's been doing it. Cassie's been doing okay, right? Like, I mean, I'm not sitting there dreading every Castellanos at bat right now, which is a good thing. And Turner at bats, I'm just looking forward to it because he's just been on such a tear.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing the professional hitter that we all knew was there, and to see him be able to come back and carry this lineup the way that he has in a time in the season where you're without Harper, you're without Schwarber, you're without Real Muto, to see those other guys step up, right? The other guy to talk about is Bohm. Bohm has just been to see where he's come from. It has just been a really, really cool story to watch, to know that, he goes from the I fucking hate this place to be able to present day where he's, as great as he is in terms of production at the plate, and to be selected as the overwhelming all-star selection. It's just a really cool journey to see a guy that you drafted. You put a lot of draft capital in. You draft him, really high in the draft, and to see him grow and now be at an elite level to be able to produce, and to the point where you're batting him 5th and or 4th, behind Harper, essentially as the protection for your best hitter in your lineup. Pretty high praise for a guy who, defensively looked horrible a couple years ago, and production at the plate was, we were wondering whether or not, what or if we were going to get any kind of production. I know we've had we had conversations about Nolan Arenado and, other options to slide in at third base, and really, really happy to have been wrong on that one.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. I mean, they put a lot, they drafted him out of college, right? Like, they wanted him because that was during those bad teams that we all saw. So they kind of needed a guy to get there quickly, and he did. And his 2020 season, remember, was awesome. He came in 2nd in Rookie of the Year voting. Now it was a shortened season, but still. Then after that, he kind of goes like full circle, right? He kind of goes down. He has he's abysmal defensively. He's not hitting for power. He's striking out a lot. Now it's like, I think we kind of saw kind of a new Alec Bohm here, and I don't know if it's just his approach or what, but he looks so much better. And he's not a guy. He's still not he's not hitting a ton of home runs, but it's fine. Like, he's still getting those extra base hits. Like, I mean, he's a guy who you could almost bank on getting a double at least like 2 games out of a series. So he's going to drive in runs, especially where he's at in the lineup now. And he's really taking advantage of it, which is good to see. He started out the season really hot. He went through a little lull there at, like, I guess it was like the middle of June, but then he's picked it right back up. Like, I mean, I think it was only like a 2-week stretch where he kind of dropped off a little bit. And I was kind of wondering, is he going to kind of start coming back down to earth now and start leveling out and trending toward the mean? But he's picked it right back up. So maybe, he's figured something out. He's been in the league now for what? This is, I guess, his fourth season. So maybe he's, experience and just, working through it has gotten to him. I'd still like to see a little bit more home run power out of our third base position, but just getting the getting the RBIs and the extra base hits, I think right now is sufficing, especially when you have, Harper in the lineup who's hitting a lot of home runs this year. Schwarber, who is good for at least, 35 probably, even with the time off and everything. And, Turner's now, I know he missed some time, so his numbers are a little bit low, but, he's hit 4 home runs in the last 4 or 5 games or something.
4 or 5 games, yeah.
But Bohm has been great, like, and seeing the defensive transformation too. Is he perfect all the time? No, but I mean, he, like, the difference between what he was and where he is now is really encouraging to see.
Yeah, to be in a position where you're missing a significant chunk of time with those guys out of your lineup, and you're still maintaining that lead on the best record in baseball. Really, I think, speaks to the depth of the guys that they've brought in around this team, right? You look at with it. So Bryce Harper leads the team with a 1.4 OPS. right? So without Harper, Bohm, Marsh, Castellanos, Rojas, since he's been back, has been a nice little bright light in to see how he's responded from coming back from that. And Trey Turner, like you're seeing guys all around them step up, which is a great thing to see in terms of how they're able to navigate this stretch, because you didn't know what you were going to get from this lineup. You didn't know, like, is this going to be like the Joel Embiid injury post? Were you going to go through a stretch where they weren't going to, they were going to kind of fall off a little bit? You've maintained, you've actually, in the span of those games since the injuries, and when the injuries, when I talk about the Harper and Schwarber injuries happen on the same day, you've actually increased your lead in the division, which is a wild thing to see. But to know that you're able to get the production that you're getting, I think speaks more to the pitching staff than it does the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I think, not saying the lineup's been bad, but I mean, when you look at this season, I think the one thing that stands out so far, again, minus the last week or so with some of these guys, but just how good this pitching staff has been, and that isn't just even the starting rotation. You're talking the bullpen too. I know Alvarado's had a couple shaky outings here and there. I feel like we've just been so spoiled that like we kind of forget that relievers do have that, and Alvarado especially has always been he's nasty when he is on, but if he's not finding the strike zone, he is a wild card, and he has been since he's been here. I think we just saw how good he's been, and people are kind of starting to freak out a little bit now. But I mean, really, Soto's been really good lately. Anthony's been really good lately. So I think as great as the starting staff has been and has really been carrying us through, I think we have to look at the bullpen too and say, hey, listen, as a pitching group in general, not on the starting side and the relief corps, you just look at really. I think that's why we are where we are this season. The offense kind of sputtered a little bit out of the gate, right? And it took them a little while to get going. And I feel like that's kind of always how the Phillies offense seems to go. But they got hot quicker than this year than they had in years past. So not taking anything away from the offense, but yeah, I mean, I think if we look back, almost at the we're at the midseason point now. If we look back for the first half, I mean, I think the entire story, most of that is going to focus on how dominant this pitching staff was through the first 80 some games of the season.
I mean, it's just been really impressive, right? You look at as of July 1st, when you look at where the Phillies fall in the power rankings across various media outlets, right? MLB, ESPN, Fox, USA Today, CBS Sports, all first, right? All number one, which speaks to their consistency of being able, I think, what media outlets are seeing is their ability to be able to see the other guys step up, right? When Trey Turner goes out, you saw the production from Edmundo Sosa. When you've seen Harper and Schwarber go out, you're seeing, Stott be productive in that leadoff spot. You're seeing Trey Turner be productive behind him. I love kind of where they're able to, where they've been able to get to in terms of their production. And even, the guy that's going to start today, Michael Mercado, has had one really good outlet or output out of the pen, and then one really good start in Chicago.
Yeah, he was a guy when we got him this offseason. He was kind of like, again, this offseason, I know a lot of people were upset because we didn't make that big move, but I think now we're seeing why we didn't really have to, right? But how important these little peripheral moves are. And Mercado was a guy who, after doing some research on him, I was pretty excited about, just knowing what his potential is. I know it seems like every young pitcher who can has some nasty stuff. Their biggest thing we look at, you see it with Mick Abel, you see it with Griff McGarry, even our system, just lack of command. And I think that was kind of the biggest thing on Mercado, and I think that was one of the things the Phillies wanted to try to fix. But yeah, so far one really good outing out of the pen, and I think tempering expectations here is important too, right? Remember, this is his second career start. Even though the Braves offense is missing some key pieces, they still have Ozzie Albies has been on fire. Ozuna, as much as I can't stand the guy, has been on fire. And Austin Riley, I think, starting to come around a little bit. So I think tempering expectations with a guy who is essentially stepping in for your two of your number 5 starters, essentially. And I think, if he can do what he did last time, go 5 innings and limit the Braves to 2 or 3 runs, then you got to just hope the offense can step in. Like, as much as I'd love to see him go 6 or 7, like, this is his second career start, and I'm more interested in seeing, can he limit walks? Can he hit his spots in the zone? What is the fastball kind of topping out at, and how he's using those secondary pitches? I know he uses curveball a good amount last week, or his last outing. So I kind of am curious to see how he mixes that in. The changeup he kind of only used, I think, like 2% of the time last time he was out. So it was mainly four-seamer, cutter, and curveball. Interesting to see if he tries to mix in the changeup at all anymore today, or if he just kind of does what has been working for him.
Yeah, listen, I think if you're looking at what potential arms could come out for the Phillies, I think you have to turn your eyes to the Rays at some point, considering the fact that you've got 3 guys on your roster right now who at one point were in the Rays system. When you look at Christopher Sanchez and how productive he's been, you look at Michael Mercado, and then you look at Jose Alvarado, right? Those are all guys in the last couple of years the Phillies have been able to acquire out of the Rays system. I'm wondering what the common thread is there, because that is not a common idea for the Rays. The Rays are normally really good at holding on to and using young, productive arms. I'm curious how these 3 guys have kind of leaked out of their system. I wonder if it's just a product of like just too much, just a number crunch. Like, are there just too many guys that they just can't keep everybody?
I think it's part of that, but also, like, Mercado didn't have great numbers with Tampa. Sanchez really didn't have good numbers when it came to Tampa. So I think it's probably a mixture of these things, right? It's like, okay, we have a lot of pitching talent here that is and remember, these guys, the Rays are a team that need these young arms to contribute basically like right away. They don't really have a ton of development time because the turnover there is so fast, right? Like, the amount of good pitchers they've developed, that it's kind of like not the same, but similar to Pittsburgh, right? Where as soon as they get a guy who's good, okay, well, they're going to get rid of him because they're not going to be able to pay him. So I think they try to focus on, okay, let's get the guys in the major leagues who can help us the most right now. And they've done a pretty good job of that. But I think with some of them, they just lost their patience with. And where the Phillies are in a different situation, right? They didn't necessarily, like, they traded for Sanchez, but they didn't need him right away. They traded for Mercado. They didn't necessarily need him right away. So they kind of had time to work with them and develop them. And if this was a few years ago, I've been like, well, I hope they don't mess it up because the development was not good. Now it's like, I mean, I think the Phillies, what they're doing with the player development, especially the pitchers. I mean, we're becoming like a powerhouse of a pitching development franchise right now. I mean, you look at some of the guys in the minor leagues, right? George Klassen, Gene Cabrera, and who's the other guy? Aldeguerri. Those guys have been just absolutely tearing it up. So it's good to see some of them, moving through the system. It's like, and I think, what Caleb Cotham, Brian Kaplan, what they've been able to do with Sanchez, what they've been able to do with, Mercado in the short time he's been here. And Mercado even credited them after his first outing. He basically said, listen, I'm really lucky to be here. This organization has been great to me so far. And, just being able to work with Cotham and Kaplan has really helped so far. So, I mean, I think, these guys, I think I mentioned on the last time too, but it's like, I think they're kind of so behind the scenes that you don't really see the impact they're having. But not even just from a major league level, but, how they're kind of passing down the line, what the development should look like in the minor leagues kind of coming up to that.
Yeah, no, it's to see how that flipped. And I think that came, at least I'm starting to notice a lot of the guys that are fitting into this mold of using this farm system to improve seems to kind of have turned with Dave Dombrowski, with the addition of Dave Dombrowski and the guidance that he's providing at the top level and how it's filtering down to the other pieces of their franchise is really providing a beneficial access point for these players at any level, right? You're seeing, if you're paying any attention to the production of these players at single A, double A, triple A, you're seeing guys that are being really productive within the Phillies farm system. And that is going to be beneficial in a different way, because some of those players will be beneficial as trade assets in acquiring impactful talent now. And those are guys we'll talk about in a little bit, but like, you talk about the NL players and pitchers of the month for the Phillies, and you talk about Bryce Harper, who goes back to back in, wins his second one in June, in the month of June. And the craziest part about this is, right, he doesn't even play the last handful of games in June, and still finishes the month with 7 home runs. And some of those home runs are like, if you go back and watch those 7, they're like majestic moonshots. They're not like, he's not getting cheated on any of them. There are some of those balls that he just absolutely murders. Has a 374 batting average, slugging 714 with a 1.16 OPS. Really, really impressive month for Harper. And then, Christopher Sanchez, this is obviously before the start in Chicago, is 3-0 in the month of June with a 1.64 ERA. Doesn't allow his second home run of the season until the start in Chicago. 4 walks in the month of June, and has an opponent's batting average just a shade over 200.
Yeah. Both guys obviously very deserving there. I mean, Bryce has had a season, and luckily this injury is kind of only short term, because he's having a season I think is actually better than his MVP season, in what was that, 2021. So like what he's on pace to do is kind of crazy. And then Sanchez, yeah, I mean, he's a guy who I think, everyone kind of coming into the season was thinking, okay, how much are we going to, need him? And then Walker goes down, he has to start, and he impresses pretty much from the gate. But I thought he was even impressive last year, like just seeing from what expectations were to what he was able to pull off. And then obviously to this year, but yeah, his month of June was crazy good. His changeup and then that uptick in velocity and kind of knowing when to go all in and when to dial it back. I think that's showing maturity, and just kind of having that year of experience now, I think has been really helpful for him. And again, just like I said in the beginning, I'm not letting the last outing, really ruin my my expectations for Sanchez, because he was already exceeding my expectations by a lot. So, he's going to have a couple bad outings here and there. Remember, he is basically what we were expecting to be a back end starter here. So your back end starter isn't going to finish the season with a 2 ERA. And again, his job is to keep us in games. And he's been doing a really good job of that, and a really good job of eating innings too, which you don't always get from a starter who's at the back end. But he's gone deep in a few games now. So yeah, really cool to see both your pitcher and a position player get the player of the month. I think I saw the last time that happened was 1980 for the Phillies, and it was Schmidt and Carlton. So
we all know how that season ended.
That's what I mean. So it's like, is that maybe a good omen there?
Listen, the last time the Phillies won the World Series in 2008, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Celtics won the NBA title that season too. So I don't know. Maybe the sports gods are telling us something.
I hate the Celtics with every fiber of my being, but if it means a Phillies World Series, whatever, I'll take it. I'll deal with it.
I'll take it. Listen, the little kid in Boston that's seen more parades than however old he is.
Yeah, and they complain.
Yeah, and they complain about it. Listen, whatever. Fuck Boston.
Yeah.
So listen, to speak about some of the guys, right? The months that they have really impressive in terms of Harper and Christopher Sanchez. Talk about the backup catcher, right? Because what you're getting from that position is more than I thought. It's a lot more than I thought we would get in terms of their production. Because to replace essentially the best second best catcher in baseball. You're replacing them with Garrett Stubbs and Rafael Marchand. Both of them are batting in the 260s. They've combined for 4 home runs and 8 RBIs. They're essentially splitting time, but they're holding it down. I'm getting a lot more production from Rafael Marchand than I knew I was going to get. Is there a potential that this is the swan song for Garrett Stubbs?
I think you have to be kind of wondering that, right? Marchand has had issues staying healthy, so I think he kind of escapes a lot of people's minds. But from a defensive standpoint, like he was pretty much ready to go from at a major league level last year. I would say I think they were ready for it, right? I mean, they did bring him up for a little bit. It's tough to say. I mean, Stubbs is one of those guys. He is actually playing well right now for the time that he's getting. Well, JT's out, but we also know that over the course of a 162 game season, JT plays a lot, but JT's getting older. I mean, he's not old by any means or any stretch of the imagination, and he's one of the toughest guys in the game. But eventually, down the road, JT is going to be sitting and not playing, not in the lineup as much as he is right now. So I think we have to start kind of planning for that. Whether and I think his contract's up after next season, so we'll see what happens there. But it's one of those things where you kind of have to look and see. Yeah, maybe it is. I know Stubbs is a great clubhouse guy. I know everyone really likes him, and his personality is awesome. I love watching him, in the postseason celebrations and everything. But ultimately, you kind of got to put some of that stuff out of your mind for a minute and say, okay, what's going to give us the best chance to win a World Series? And, because of how much JT plays, maybe for our team, backup catcher is slightly less important than for some other teams. But I mean, Marchand's younger. I think, we're seeing actually not a bad bat from him, and kind of like Rojas, that was kind of the knock on Marchand. Yeah. But we're seeing him be able to fill in pretty well here. Basically getting, I think if you combine those two numbers, right around a 260 average, 4 home runs. I mean, I think if you told me that JT was hitting 260 with 4 home runs and those numbers by himself from the time he was injured till now, I'd say that was a little bit of a different production. But I mean, that's pretty much what his average is, right? He's around a 260, 270 hitter usually.
Yeah.
And he might pop off for a few more home runs. But I think from what we're looking at, those guys have filled in and done their job. Now, I don't want to see what happens if they have to do it for an extended period. So right. JT, I'm not rushing you back because a catcher needs his knees to be in good shape back there.
Right.
But I don't want to see those guys have to play too deep into August or anything.
No. I think when you talk about, right, they're hitting a combined 264 with 4 home runs and 8 RBIs. Like if you said that was the production that you're getting from your catcher position over the course of the last 26 games, I'd be really happy. And it's relatively comparable to what you're getting from JT Realmuto. So, but I agree. This is good.
The power number and the run production numbers could be a little bit better from JT, but for what you're getting from these backup guys, I think that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. The most important piece of this is getting him healthy for that end of the summer into the fall, and making sure that he's ready to go. Mm-hmm. Because of what you're seeing from the rest of this lineup, and when this lineup is together, really impressive. In terms of their ability to be able to produce when you look at what you're getting from them offensively. When you look at Aaron Nola, right? Aaron Nola gets his 100th win. He's one of 3 active pitchers who have 100 career wins with one club. Can you name the other 2?
So I would be I don't want to. I have to admit that I saw this tweet, so I'd be cheating.
Okay,
but it's Kershaw and Verlander, right?
Yeah. That's a cool group for him to be like. Yeah. For him to be associated with a guy with 2 other guys in that echelon, I think speaks quietly to his production and the importance of that signing in this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a Nola backer since he came up here, and he's a guy who gets, I think, so much unfair criticism. I know he has a propensity to give up the home run. But if you look at his overall career numbers, he's pretty much exactly what they expected him to be, right? I mean, if you're looking
Sure.
at Nola as an ace, okay, yeah, you're going to be disappointed. He's close to it. He could be a number one pitcher on some teams, but we have Zach Wheeler. He is our ace, right? Nola's our number two guy, and our number two guy right now is 10-4 with like a 3.48 ERA, I believe.
Mhm.
And he's had a lot of games that he pitched better than that ERA even indicates, but he's had two games that inflated that number a little bit. To me, Nola is one of those guys where because when he came up on those terrible teams. He was your number one starter. So with those expectations, I think he was kind of destined to be, and he was a high draft pick, so he's destined for that criticism.
Mhm.
And Bohm kind of went through the same thing, right? For obviously different reasons, but looking at Nola's ranks in the organization at all-time numbers, right? So far, I think he's seventh in games started. He's got like 253 games started. Now Carlton's like 499, so he's got a long time to go.
Got a ways to go.
He's never going to catch him in strikeouts, but right now he's close. I think he's fourth overall in strikeouts. In terms of wins, there's only 9 other pitchers in Phillies history who have 100 wins with the franchise. And his next win, he ties Schilling, and the one after that, he moves up. By next year, he'll pass Hamels probably. So we're looking at a guy who is and now length of time in the organization obviously matters, but by the time his contract is up, we're looking at a guy who's going to be in the top 5, maybe even higher in almost every single important stat category in franchise history. Now, you don't have that if you're a guy who is as bad as some people say he is, and the only reason people think he's bad is because he gives up the home run. And I know he can be frustrating. I know it, but you got to look overall as a whole. And this dude has been a model of consistency. You're guaranteed 180 to 200 innings almost every single season. He's going to make 30 plus starts every single season. It's just been like something where he's been so fun to watch, and I absolutely love everything he's done with this organization. And it's going to be really fun, I think, the next 6 years, seeing what he does and kind of what he's able to accomplish in terms of not just on the field, but also where he ends up in the organization from like a ranking standpoint.
I think as much as listen, I'm right there with you. I think the frustration, right, even in his start the other night, where he gets the 100th win, the fact like he gave up the home runs, it makes you feel a little bit different about him coming into into this in terms of his ability to be able to good Lord, can we get a shutdown inning? Can we not when we give up when we get the lead? Can we not give up a home run in the next inning? And I think along with giving up the home runs, most often it's the timing too. The timing of the home runs is always bad as well.
Yeah, I see that, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here. So the other night in his 100th win, he had a quality start: 6 innings, 3 runs, 8 strikeouts. And the only runs he gave up were on 2 home runs, right? So I don't know. Would I rather see him just say, okay, just, hey, if I'm going to give up 3 runs, let me just do it in home runs. And I think, if you have your starter give you a quality start. Now, I know we're down some guys, but to me, that's on the offense. If there's a stat quality start, then your offense has to be able to make up for that, I think.
Listen, I agree. It's just it always feels like it's come on, we just needed that, and I think that's what normally gives people a bad taste. But when you take a step back and you look, right, he's a guy who, as much as people want to gripe about it, he's going to be a guy in 12 years who's going to be having his Wall of Fame day, and he's going to have, along with a number of these other guys, because of his career and because of the duration of his career and the amount of time that he's essentially going to spend his entire career with one organization.
Yeah, he'll be a career Philly, and you don't see that as much, right? You don't see guys stay with
Mhm.
one team because of just how much money there is out there in free agency. So yeah, I think the Phillies locked him up. He's basically making what 25 million a year, and for a guy who gives you what he's giving you, some pitchers are commanding 40 million on the market right now. Now he's not a Scherzer, he's not a Wheeler, so he shouldn't be getting that. But I mean,
Mhm.
7 years, 25 million, and especially by the end, now he may he's probably going to regress a little bit, but when we look at this, by the time everything's said and done, how much are pitchers going to be making in 6 years? I mean, the starting
Mhm.
pitching market every year, I feel like one person just keeps making more and more and more. I mean, we might have the top guys in 6 years, like Paul Skeens will be just getting ready to hit free agency around then, and he's gonna if he keeps up what he's doing, he's gonna make 60 million a year. Like, I mean, it's
Okay, so pause for a second.
yeah,
Paul Skeens is like appointment level television right now.
oh, he's been fun.
He is fucking fun to watch. And you have the game the other night where they can't stop hitting home runs to the point where the stadium runs out of fireworks. Pittsburgh's a young, fun team to watch. They're a team, and I've heard Buster Olney talk about this a little bit. They're a team that I wouldn't necessarily want to run into in a playoff series. In a short series, they could be a team because of their pitching staff that could take out another team based on the performance of their pitching staff and their ability to be able to be offensively effective right away.
Yeah, they're an interesting team right now because, and I hate this because ultimately what's going to happen in 3 or 4 years is most of these guys are going to be gone because they won't spend any money. But there's like between Jared Jones and Paul Skeens heading your rotation, if you talk 2 or 3 years from now and they do sneak in as a wild card team, like those two guys starting against you, like that's pretty tough to handle. You have Brian Reynolds, who's been on an absolute tear in Pittsburgh, and you have some guys who I think who can be better than what they're getting, right? In Brian Hayes
Mm-hmm.
and O'Neill Cruz. So it's like they have some pieces there, and they have some young pieces, but ultimately, I'm just like I get Buster's point, but I don't see them making the playoffs unless they say, okay, let's retain a couple of these guys. But like I was
Right.
just talking to my dad about this the other day, how how Pittsburgh does this, right? And they are gonna eventually get rid of Skeens because they won't end up spending any money. So it's a shame, but he's fun to watch, and his career is going to be a fun one to follow.
Listen, at the very least, Eric, like baseball was relevant in Pittsburgh. And the city of Pittsburgh, I have a couple friends who are
Mhm.
Pittsburgh natives. Um, when their sports teams are good, it feels very Philadelphia-ish.
Yep.
And them being good is good for baseball too.
Oh,
So
I would love the Pirates to be back on the radar. Like it's an awesome stadium, and I would love to see
that
that
is a
place back.
really, really cool. That is a very cool, underrated stadium.
Yeah, it's
Having
so cool.
stayed in Pittsburgh for a wedding
Hmm.
and just going out in the morning and just walk the city in the morning, you literally can walk a neighborhood and run into the stadium. It's a super cool venue.
Yeah, it's. I think it's one of the best in baseball. So it would be really cool to see. Again, I know we don't want other teams in the NL to take over the Phillies or anything, but I mean, it would be good to see Pittsburgh competitive again because to me, the NL Central is kind of lackluster right now. You have the Brewers who are having a pretty good season. They have some guys who are contributing. The Cubs just straight up stink right now. The Cardinals are playing better than I think they should be, so they might be like
Yeah.
what the Mets did, like they go on that hot streak and then eventually kind of fizzle out. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, it would be cool to see Pittsburgh at least in contention for like a wild card spot in the next couple of years because they do have some guys who I think would be really fun to watch on a national stage.
I love it. I love it. And I think Major League Baseball owes it to the fans to be able to maybe look at getting them into some primetime games, getting Pittsburgh into some of those Saturday Fox games, getting them on some Sunday night, hopefully with the idea that, you can get Paul Skeens into some of those games to be able to get, him highlighted on there as well. but really, really cool. I'm curious to see who can take that team to the next level to be able to get them to be in contention to win that division. But it is. You're right. It's exciting to see. And what else is exciting, right? You've got the Phillies going to be highly represented at the All-Star game, right? Harper wins the initial vote with the most votes, so he's going to, all things healthy, he starts at first base. But then you've also got Bohm and Turner. So you're going to have 3 out of the 4 infield positions. Talk to me about what that means in terms of the guys that are elected, and then who else may be potentially on the roster when they announce that today.
It's so cool to see these guys, to see this many guys get there based on fan vote. Bowman Harper, absolutely deserving of it. I don't think there's any argument there. Turner gets in after being hurt for a while, but you look at his numbers, I mean, and the way he's been playing recently, right. I know a lot of people are saying he doesn't deserve to be there because of the time he missed and everything. Philly fans got him there, and it is what it is. But it's not like he's sitting there hitting, 240 either. Like he's been good when he's been in the lineup. So I think you can argue that that's fine. I think it's tonight reserves are announced, right? Am I correct in saying that? And pitchers. Yeah. I don't know if any other position players get in. It was actually kind of amusing to see Marsh and Castellanos in the final vote there. Marsh, I think, just against righties, he's been really good. Against lefties, he's just not. Castellanos has been questionable for most of the season, I would say. He's, I think if he made it in, I think that would start an uproar around Major League Baseball. So I don't necessarily think any other position players necessarily get in, but I do think at least 1 or 2 pitchers do. Wheeler's been having a solid season. I think maybe even based off of name alone, Wheeler may sneak in. There's just so much kind of good pitching right now, but there's also some injuries. So I think you're going to see guys get selected and then either not pitch, or the team won't let them pitch, or they're hurt. So you might see a couple other guys sneak in. I think, obviously what Ranger did in the first half, what Sanchez did in the first half, I think are important. But again, it's just a matter of how many they want to carry from one team. Now, from the bullpen, we've had one of the best bullpens, but I think when you're looking at how they pick relievers, right? Because you have so many starters pitching anyway, in this. So they only take like the dominant closers who are like leading the league in saves, which I think is going to hurt a guy like Jeff Hoffman, who is undoubtedly deserving of being an all-star. But
I mean, between him and Strom, and Alvarado, they've all had really, really good seasons. But to get a guy who's a middle relief guy, doesn't matter what your numbers are, you've got to be like better than better.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's all going to look at, how many saves does he have, all this stuff. I mean, everything else kind of works out for him. But I think he's deserving, but I don't think he gets in. So I think we look at maybe 1 or 2 of our starters getting in. Between between Wheeler, Suarez, and Sanchez, at least 1 or 2 of those guys get in, I think.
Nice. All right, so Bohm's going to participate in the home run derby. That mean that it's nice to have a horse in the race. Is there any apprehension to him participating?
Yes, Bobby Abreu. Do you remember that?
I do.
So like
Bobby Abreu, Don Brown, it's not going well.
Yeah, exactly. And especially a guy like Bohm, who's not really a home run hitter anyway. I am terrified what this is going to do to his swing. Kind of like what it did to Bobby. Now, when Schwarber was in it a few years ago, when it was and when Harper was still on the Nationals, and it was Schwarber and Hoskins and all those guys, like those are guys who have that type of swing already anyway, right? They're home run hitters. So like that wouldn't have worried me as much when that was what, I guess it was like 2018 or 17 or something, when Hoskins and Schwarber and Harper were all in it. But a guy like Bohm kind of does scare me a little bit because of the fact that he's not a home run hitter. Is he going to have to change his swing up to do this? And is it going to mess him up for believe me, it's really cool for him. I'm glad he's able to do it. I just hope it doesn't. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it has no negative effect. I just get worried about it a little
If I'm being honest, I hope he gets to participate and he's out in the first round.
bit. See, once I'm watching it, I'm gonna be like, let's go. Like I'll be raring to go.
Right.
I'll be wanting him to win. But at the same time, come September when the dude has hit 2 home runs since the home run derby and his strikeout rate has gone up, then I'll be like, crap, why did I want him?
Yeah, no, and it is cool. It is cool for him to have, and it's a cool honor to have. So listen, I'll be tuning in. I'll be, like you said, when it's on, I'll be cheering for him to do well. But really with the caveat that I really want him to be really productive post All-Star game when the games really matter. The other Philly, you got the MLB futures game, and you're going to have Aiden Miller and Justin Crawford participate. Those guys have just been on a tear. Those guys have been playing really well in the farm system. Aiden Miller, his production in this first season within the Philly system, and to see how quickly he's moved through the ranks, and to see it is just, it's good to know that that's waiting in the wings.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Justin Crawford, this is his second futures game. He was in it last year with Mick Abel. So it is really cool to see. And he's a guy who has so much potential. So I'm curious to see how he can kind of move up. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year he's in Reading, if he can kind of keep up his production at Jersey Shore. Miller was tearing it up in Clearwater. He struggled a little bit since he's gotten to Jersey Shore. But again, it's a big jump for a young guy who's really in his first professional season. I'm not like concerned by any means. I think he's just like such a talented hitter that he'll eventually come around. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching it. I forget when is this on again? It's like a weird time, isn't it?
It is. And this is one of my gripes with MLB is that this game is normally like, so the All-Star game is on Tuesday.
Right.
I feel like this game is like Sunday afternoon.
I feel like it's like Sunday at 3 or something. Yeah. When
which like
there's other games, like
come on, like there's like this. If I'm being honest, if they wanted to do it right, this futures game should be the Sunday night baseball game.
That'd be cool. That'd be a cool idea. Yeah.
Like to just like put all those guys on display, right? Get like really highlight the future of the sport, but put them on a national spotlight, right? Because you're not going to they don't have any Sunday night games leading into the All-Star break. Like put these guys on Sunday, like make this Sunday night baseball. You've got all the cameras, you've got all the equipment there already to be able to do the home run derby and the All-Star game on Tuesday. Make this like that's a better way to highlight, because there's been years where this game's on at 3:00 on Sunday and I completely miss it because it's on at such a weird time.
Yeah. And like, if that's the case, like other like real MLB games are that's the last day before the break, right? So it's like you have other games going on at the same time. So yeah, that would be an interesting idea to do it as a Sunday night baseball game. That would definitely give it more publicity. If we know there's one thing Major League Baseball is really good at, is marketing the game and making it accessible to people. So maybe Rob Manfred, if you ever hear this, here's a good idea.
All right, you ready?
I'm sure we'll take
it looks like it is scheduled for, hold on one second. I'm trying to pull it up right now. 4 p.m. on Saturday, July 13th.
Okay.
Could you bury it at a more obscure time?
Yeah, and again, other team like okay, I'm gonna also want to watch my major league team play as well. So you have that rivaling it. Always good ideas
God.
from the.
God, and they're like, people are sitting in rooms making decisions, and I don't understand it. Oh God.
Yeah, and like I saw a tweet that is, just to backtrack a minute here, like how on like some of these days, like July 5th, right? Not everyone is off that day, but there's a lot of people who either take off that day or on vacation. And I think the first game on July 5th started at 6:40. Why would you not take advantage of the fact that you have time slots for afternoon games? Use it. Like I would have gladly sat there and
Oh
watched a
God.
couple innings of another game. If I'm sitting around and have time to do it. Like they're just I don't understand why they make it so that no one can watch the game. Yet instead they're just going to change every rule around to make baseball as gimmicky as possible to try to get people to watch it again. I don't understand the logic there.
Doesn't make sense. Real quick, in or out on the jersey?
I think the All-Star jerseys are always kind of bad.
Agreed.
So I didn't. It was years past. Yeah, years past. They used to just wear their team uniforms, right? I'm like, let's just go back to that.
I would love to go back, and I'm glad you mentioned it. This game is taking place in an American League park.
Mm-hmm.
All the American League teams wear their home uniform. All the National League teams wear their grays, the road grays. Like, let's not make it complicated. Like this is like either that or one team where like they all wear the City Connect uniform. Like, let's not make this like this is just for me a way for them to just grab.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I'm a Jersey guy, and I'm out on it.
That's and there's a lot of Phillies in it this year too. It's like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to have this, but I'm like, it looks stupid. So do I really want it?
Looks done. Looks done. All right. So trade deadline's coming up. I'm going to put some numbers up on the screen because outfield has been the top priority. You've got numbers versus lefties, right? You've got Marsh at batting 152. You've got Merrifield batting 183. You've got Pache batting 193. You've got Luis Robert batting 269, and you've got Ward batting 356. Any of that give you any kind of pause or push your chips in for improving that position?
So my whole thing was, and I know, back in May, we start thinking about this stuff and it's like the trade deadline's still so far away. Let's see what we have first before we jump into, hey, we have to go get Luis Robert or we have to go, make a big splash here. I was willing to let those three guys, Marsh, Merrifield, Pache, kind of figure it out. To me, Marsh is acceptable because, okay, you can kind of platoon him a little bit because he is good against righties. Merrifield and Pache haven't been good against anyone or anything. I don't know if they could hit a pitching machine right now. Like, they have been abysmal. And I wanted to say, okay, hey, maybe just a rough start. But they've both gotten so many opportunities at this point, and neither one is taking any advantage of it. So I really don't know what you do there. But yeah, I mean, I'm at the point now where I don't necessarily need it to be Luis Robert. But I do want them to make some sort of move to help with the outfield because, again, if you have anyone else go down for any extended period of time and you have to insert Merrifield or Pache into the lineup almost every day like we've been doing against lefties, it's like it's almost like back when pitchers were batting. Like, they are almost an automatic out at this point. Or if they do get on base, they do something stupid. So it's just like I'm kind of frustrated with those two right now in terms of our outfield production. So there's another guy who has come up, and I just saw something about it today. I think Bob Nightingale put it out there. Brent Rooker from the A's.
Yeah.
He would be a guy I would really look at from a production standpoint. He's been pretty good. The name isn't as big as Luis Robert, so it may cost a little bit less. I have not actually. I literally saw this maybe 15 minutes before we went on here. So
I think I saw the same thing.
Do enough research into like his team control or age or anything like that. So I'd have to do more research on that. But just seeing what he's done, I use fantasy baseball a lot as kind of my measuring for some of these guys. And he's had a pretty productive season. I know he started out slow, but he's been pretty productive since I would say like the end of May.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna pull up. So right now, batting 278 with 18 home runs and 54 RBIs.
Jesus, that's even better than I thought it was going to be.
Right. So, and service time, he's arbitration eligible in 2025, and he becomes a
gonna cost
free
a lot.
agent in 2028.
Okay, he's going to cost a lot then because of the team control.
Right. So there's that. But
Yeah.
but in terms of what it would cost you compared to what it would cost you to get Luis Robert, maybe a little bit different.
Yeah.
In terms of the package that you'd have to give up. There have been a lot of good conversations in terms of the guys that are available. Who's the pitcher from the Ace, the closer? Miller?
Mason Miller, yeah.
Mason
He's
Miller.
another one who has a ton of team control. And for a closer, I can't even imagine what the asking price is going to be for him.
I mean, I got to imagine it would cost you like a lot of your top of the line, a lot of the top of your farm system guys.
I would say at least 2 top 10s, yeah.
So, and here's the thing, I'm after going back to see some of the guys that you've given up to get in the last couple of years, I'm more inclined to be willing to have a conversation. There are a couple guys like Aiden Miller, to me, is a guy that I don't even want to touch. I don't want to have a conversation about. There's a couple of pitchers that I'm not willing to have a conversation about, but there's a lot of other guys that are on the table that I'd be willing to kind of play around with to figure out a creative way to come up with a package to get some of these guys. Cause I feel like you're going to need to improve that level of play from that position. And I think it's probably not out of the question for them to be able to get to add, maybe not to the rotation, but definitely add to the bullpen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there. I think Miller and I think Painter should be untouchable. And there's a lot of really good young pitching talent, but I'd be willing to part with 1 or 2 of them if it meant bringing in someone to make an impact. Now, we've talked about on other shows before how prospects are such a hit or miss type thing, right? I mean, I remember, sitting there with my friend in when we're waiting for the Halliday deal and saying, okay, who would we give up? Who would we keep? Who's untouchable? We were saying, yeah, Don Brown is untouchable. We were saying Kyle Drabeck was untouchable. You look at them; they had minimal impacts in the major leagues. So it's one of those things where there's certain guys who I think are pretty much sure things, like Andrew Painter. The fact that he's missed a whole year and is still ranked as the top pitching prospect almost in the minor leagues, I think says a lot about what people think about him. I think we're looking at maybe a level a little below Paul Skeens. But still, if we get that would be great. And he's a guy who's ready to contribute. Like, I don't want to get rid of a guy who's ready to contribute like now. There's guys who still have a lot of development to do. Like, I'm not saying I want to get rid of him, but a guy like say Gene Cabrera, right? He's been absolutely dominant in the minor leagues pitching, but he's still got a long way to go. Like, there could be speed bumps. Things could happen. I'm not saying I want them to. I'm not saying they will, but those are guys I'd be more willing to part with because, number one, our pitching. Our rotation is pretty much set for a while now, and we're not really going to need that impact in the next year or two. So, sure, let's win a World Series this year. Let's not have to worry about it anymore.
When you think about it, if you win a World Series, and the guys that you give up will become anecdotes in the story that gets told while you're at the parade,
right?
And 20 years down the line, no one's going to talk about the guys you gave up to get the guy to insert to push you over the top. They're just going to talk about the guy that pushed you over the top. And if you get the best player in the trade, you win the trade.
Right.
Do guys like so I was reading an article from one of your colleagues, Edward Ng, on That Ball's Out of Here, in terms of the trade deadline candidates potentially in Chicago other than Luis Robert. And the guys that he's talking about are Tommy Pham and Ian Happ. Either one of those guys?
I feel like Tommy Pham's name comes up at a trade deadline or in the offseason for us all the time. And there's got to be a reason that the Phillies have never taken a shot, right? I know he can be like he's like fought fans and stuff like that. Like he's a guy who may negatively impact the clubhouse that we have there. So that
Okay.
might be a reason. He's not a bad player. For a half a season, would I take a flyer on him? Maybe, yeah. But I think there's like I think this is the third time his name has come up in like trade things, and the Phillies just have not really had any interest. Another guy, Ian Happ. He's a guy I wouldn't actually mind. I wouldn't mind that at all. He's obviously a step below Robert, probably even a step below Rooker at this point, but he's going to cost you less. But he's basically an everyday player. So he's capable of having a good game. So I wouldn't mind seeing that, depending, if the price is right.
Yeah, no, and then another guy in Chicago, Cody Bellinger, is another guy. I said he's a guy that I sent you a little bit of info on. I know it's a left-handed bat, but that would be a wild upgrade into this Phillies outfield, offensively and defensively.
Yeah, exactly. It just stinks he's a lefty, because otherwise he would be like the perfect fit.
He's a guy we talked about in the offseason.
Right, exactly. Yep, I know. And he's a guy. Yeah, obviously, if we got him, he's another impact bat. And you're right. He's versatile with where he can play and everything. It just does make the lineup much more lefty heavy. I have not looked at Bellinger's splits against lefties, so I don't exactly know how he's doing there. But it can't. I don't know if it could be worse than what we have going on right now. So, again, if the price is right, let's we could always go for it.
Speaking of splits and the right-handed versus left-handed, I'm pulling it up right now. So Cody Bellinger, hold on one second. Trying to look here. It looks like he's got in 53 games. No, this is season stuff. Sorry. I'm completely in on letting Marsh play every day. I'm kind of the experiment of going right and left. To me, I think you get an opportunity to see if he can be just your everyday guy. I think he's a guy who has been productive enough that if you want him to get better at something, you got to give him the opportunities to be able to get better and not just pull him in and out of the lineup.
Yeah, and I see both sides of that, because he's definitely been a guy who, can make an impact in the lineup. But he struggles against lefties. But I don't understand how he's ever going to get better if you don't ever let him hit him. You know what I mean? Right. Real quick, I did find Bellinger's splits here. So this season, okay, he's actually hitting better against lefties than he is against righties. His splits against his splits against lefties in 97 plate appearances, he's hitting 330. Now power numbers aren't, I guess, in terms of frequency, they are 2 home runs, 14 RBIs. Against righties, he's hitting 243 with 7 home runs and 23 RBIs. His OPS against righties is 729, and his OPS against lefties is 787. So he's actually got some kind of reverse splits there. It looks like. So he might actually not be a bad ad if he can hit the lefties.
Hey, listen, I'm here for it. Eric, there's one more thing I want to share with you before we jump out of here. Umpiring is something we've talked about a lot. The information that we have now obviously makes it much more readily available, but some of this stuff that we're seeing from some of these umpires is just bad. When you talk about Laz Diaz in the Phillies win against the Braves on Friday night with with a strike call accuracy of 80%, that's bad. He's missing 1 out of every 5 pitches. Now the ball accuracy is 99%. Okay. But the fact that you had as many missed calls outside of the strike zone that were balls that were called strikes, And if you look at the graphic on the screen, like we're not even talking about balls that clipped the strike zone. We're talking about balls that are wildly outside the strike zone.
Yeah, there's a couple of those bottom right there are particularly bad. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's and we've said it. It's kind of an epidemic right now. I know there's the argument for the robo umps and everything. I'm not there yet. I've always been a traditionalist, even when it came to replay, when it came to the DH, all that stuff. So I mean, eventually, I think something's going to have to happen because these umpires are just kind of, and we've talked about it, no accountability or repercussions. I don't mind what they've been doing in the minor leagues with the strike ball challenge system. I think that way you have an umpire there. And realistic, I mean, you would hope that it's only one pitch per at bat that you have to use it. I mean, if you have apparently with Laz the other day, if you had a pitch that an at bat that had more than 5 pitches, you were likely to have 2 missed calls. But it's one of those things where you would hope that. And again, it just helps. It helps the ump a little bit too because they're getting all this flack and. Some of these, it's not a position that I really envy either. It's like they're in a spot where they, I don't like that they're not held accountable for anything. But some of the ways how fast these guys are throwing, the movement on some of these pitches, I get missing a call or two here and there. Like it's going to happen. That's the human element of the game. But when you're seeing guys who are in the low 80s, like the
graphic that's on the screen right now is Bruce Dreckman's report card from the Phillies Cubs game on Tuesday on July 2nd. And he's got a strike accuracy rate of 83%. Like what happens is that when those calls are missed at the rate that they are, when you're missing 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 calls, those calls that you're seeing, they only highlight the 3 most impactful, calls, but all of them become impactful because it's happening at such an alarming rate that you have guys. And I think if you talk to MLB players, what they would tell you is that they just want consistency. They want to know that the balls that are called, are they called that way all day long? And I think what you're seeing is that, like, if I'm looking at this one in this bottom right-hand corner here, right, you've got balls that are within inches of each other, like half inches of each other.
Right.
And one is a ball, one is a strike. And that to me talks like you look at the ball at the top of the
I was just looking
zone.
there too. Yeah.
Like you've got balls that are within earshot of each other. And we're not talking about like feet. We're talking about inches.
Right.
And the fact that you have the inconsistency, I don't understand what the hesitancy is with MLB to at least incorporate this on some level so that it can help them. I'm not saying I don't want to get rid of them, but like the more that you provide assistance to make sure that the calls are accurate, if we have the technology to be able to do this and to be able to do it at an efficient level. If that means that you employ like one person at every MLB park to be in charge of this, and they, they make the signal to go to review. They go to the review. Did it hit the zone? It did. It didn't. Great. No, we're back. Like it's not something that would be.
I mean, it's not like a safe out call where there's 6 different angles you have to look from. There's literally you look. Okay, did it touch the zone? Nope. It's a ball. Yep. It's a strike. Like I mean, it should be less than a 10-second review process, so it shouldn't add much time to the game either.
Not at all. Eric, anything before we jump out of here?
I don't think so. I think let's get into the All-Star break with some momentum here. We got one more against Atlanta today. We got 3 against the Dodgers. So we got some tough games coming up. So let's let's win a series today. Let's hopefully win a series at home against LA, and then take care of business against Oakland heading in and going with some momentum.
Sounds good. On the way out. Go Phils.
Go Phils.
Hey, listen to this guy. Tell me how you're feeling here. You're screaming.
I am stoked, baby.
You're screaming like it's still the game going on.
We're talking about the fightings here. The fightings. Said.
Should